welcome. I'm with supermodel, actress, TV presenter, food expert and author, the gorgeous Padma Lakshmi, here at the American Center in New Delhi. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's an honor to share screen space with you.
Thank you.
Before I start chatting about your books and what you're doing here in India, I'd like to applaud your journey so far.
Thank you.
You're such an inspiration, not just for women, but for South Asian women around the world. Tell us a little bit about Padma. Let's get to know you. Let's start right at the very beginning.
I think I feel very much an Indian girl, just like you or most people here, but I haven't grown up here. I've obviously grown up most of my life in America, and so I do also feel very American. And I would say that the biggest headline of my identity would be that I am a woman who is straddling two cultures and two ways of life. But those ways of life, because of what's happening globally, are slowly merging closer and closer together for everyone. So I think my life has now just become a little more familiar to people, because a lot more people, especially in America, who, which has this big immigrant community, experience. I don't think that my experience is all that different or as rare as it probably was when I was a teenager.
True. So what about the young Padma? What did she want to be, or what did she aspire to be back then?
When I was 4, I went to America for the first time, and I went as an unaccompanied minor.
Okay.
And you couldn't do that now. But I think one of the first things I wanted to be was an airline hostess, which is what we call them now. Now we call them flight attendants or air stewardesses. But I wanted to be an airline hostess. I would see these glamorous women with these big bouffants and Sharmila Tagore eyeliner with these printed silk saris fluttering up and down the aisles. I see them whisking away from Paris to Rome and their Samsonite beauty cases, and they just seemed so larger than life, so glamorous. And I think because I was able to travel so early on, between America and India, even though I've grown up in the States, I've been coming here for 3 months every year from the age of 5 to the age of 17. And still I do try and come mostly about 3 or 4 weeks a year. Last year I was able to come twice, which was nice. So, I think even my young self always longed for a life that was very international, full of travel. And so in my own way, I think I did, achieve that.
Yeah. But how did the entertainment industry happen to you? Did you want to be a model? I know you studied theater.
Yeah.
So how did you get into entertainment?
No, I mean, I think, I felt like I was a pretty girl, but because of the scar on my arm that I got when I was 14, I never thought that I was, like those girls that you saw in magazines.
Yeah.
And it was in my last semester of studying in Spain that the modeling agent kind of picked me out. Yeah. And I started modeling because I had a lot of college loans. So that is kind of how I got my foot in the door. And I probably would have just gone back to my mother's house after graduation and tried, my hand in Hollywood a lot sooner. But I was able to model, and I was able to see the world, and it was a very, very juicy life for a young girl. You don't often get those opportunities to travel to all those wonderful places,
exotic locations.
Yeah, and it was it was wonderful. It was really, really nice to be able to see the world, for your work on someone else's dime.
I know, right? Okay, so, Top Chef happened, and you've become like a household name with that. And do you think your Indian heritage sort of helped in any way with, your culinary skills?
It definitely helped. Yeah. It absolutely helped, because Indians are obsessed with food.
Yeah.
And totally obsessed with food, and my family was no different. And so most of the activity in our homes, whether it was my mother's home or my grandmother's home, was always focused around food. There was always some stage of cooking going on. Here in Chennai, where I would live with my family, we were 8 or 10 of us, so there was some meal being prepared. And I think my grandmother's an extraordinary cook, and she's very knowledgeable. And so I don't think I could have written the Encyclopedia of Spices and Herbs if it wasn't for that early introduction to all these wonderful seeds and twigs that were these, little tiny explosions of flavor. And from there, you know, I always had to look for the foods of my own culture in America. When I was a kid, it took me a really long time to assimilate to the food in America. And so I, you know, always looked for ways to cook our own home cooking and seek out those ingredients or things that were similar. So like maybe there wasn't an Indian store necessarily always near me, but there was a Latin store and they had tamarind and they had chilies and things like that. And in the process of seeking out the flavors that were comforting to me, I think I learned about other cultures. And then, of course, you know, as a model everywhere I went, I sampled food from different countries.
So what's your favorite cuisine from around the world?
You know, with Top Chef, we have been filming for 2 years in a row in Mexico, in San Miguel de Allende, and then in Mérida and the Yucatan for this finale, which is about to air next month. And so I'm fascinated with Mexican food. I think most of the Mexican food that trickles down out of Mexico is very limited and is very Americanized, you know, nachos, tacos, etc. And tacos are great, you know, I've never refused a taco ever. But Mexican food, much like Indian food, is very varied, is very regional, and is much more sophisticated than we realize. And because of the climates in both places, they're also very similar. If you think about the ingredients, coconut, mango, chilies,
very tropical,
cumin,
right?
And so, you know, when you really dig deep into regional Mexican food, you see even more parallels. You know, they have something called recados, which are masalas. You know, some of them are moist and wet, and some of them are powders, like our masalas. And you know, you see this abundant use of the same ingredients, and the idea that you always want to have something spicy, something sour, something a little sweet in one dish, in that one bite. I mean, that's what chaat is all about. You know, and that's what kind of nachos are about, if you think of it.
True. So how did this super taste bud come about? I know that you have one or have some.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just you're just born with it. It's nothing you do, or it's not a skill.
I didn't even know it was something people had.
Neither did I. I mean, I had heard the term bandied about vaguely, but I thought it was just a marketing thing. I didn't think there was any scientific backing to it. And then when I was filming Top Chef in Seattle, my daughter and I went to the Science Museum there, and they had an Italian researcher who was doing this display on your senses. And I often said to her, you know, I think I'm a good cook because I can taste what's in a dish, not because, you know, I'm very good at chopping or whatever. And she said, well, maybe you're a super taster. And I said, is that a thing? And she said, yeah, and it's a very simple test you can do. And it just means that people who are super tasters have certain taste buds that normal people don't have. Yeah, so, you know, I guess that was why I was able to differentiate all the ingredients in my granny's cooking, or understand the nuances and subtleties of how she was making the dishes even from a very early age. Like, I think I knew how to cook by 10.
Wow.
I mean, I may not have had the opportunity to do it, you know, as a child.
But just you were witness to it for so long.
Exactly. I was hanging out in the kitchen, as many children do, and I saw it every day for several hours.
So let's talk about your memoir, Love, Loss, and What We Ate. How do you, like, what kind of, what motivated you to, you know, put it all down in words, and what do you exactly hope that, you know, women will take away from it?
Well, it started out because every time I went on a red carpet, people would say, how do you stay so slim and do your job? Which is a mighty good question, because it's not easy. And I love to eat, you know. So I think the short answer is, obviously you have to exercise a lot. And when I'm not filming, you have to make up for it and really tighten your belt. You know, no dairy, no meat, no wheat, no sugar, no alcohol, no fried foods.
Oh, that's sad, isn't it?
It is sad, but, you know, it's just like a pendulum, right? It has to swing both ways, otherwise there's no balance. And so the book that I intended to write was an attempt to explain this and explain a lot of the philosophies I had about food using the personal details of my life. And you know, I wanted it to be a really frank book that women could read and men could read, where they could come out and be like, okay, she's not just, you know, BSing us. She's really like telling us how it is, because there's always a new diet that comes out every year that's supposed to be a miracle diet, but there's no miracle. It's just arithmetic. It's calories expended versus calories taken in. And in the writing of that book, I took a left turn, a very deep left turn somewhere, and I found that the writing about those personal issues, you know, a lot of things affect your diet, your mood, your hormones, you know, all of those things, what's going on in your life and work and where you are in your, you know, in your evolution as a woman. So it was in the writing of that I thought, you know, let me just keep going. I was turning in pages to my editor, and I said, you know, I think I'm just like lost in the forest of my own writing. I kind of didn't know where I was going with this, and I had a really good, supportive publisher and editor at HarperCollins, at Echo in New York, and so I don't think I could have done this book without the support, you know, of my publisher, and I'm very thankful.
How long did it take you to put it all together?
Oh my gosh, it took me 5 years to write this book, and you know, again, I had a really supportive publisher, and he was very patient as well.
Super. And we welcomed you back to the Indian Ramps last week at the Laxmi Fashion Week.
Oh my gosh,
How
yes.
was that?
You know, I had forgotten how much I loved doing fashion shows. Honestly, I haven't done a fashion show in about over a decade. I'm embarrassed to say how long, and I've never walked in Mumbai Fashion Week. You know, I had done a couple of fashion shows here and there, but I never really worked as a model here in India, and it felt so good. Tarun Tahiliani is a designer I've really admired and who's a personal friend. So I felt safe with
perfect,
him.
yeah.
I just, you know, I didn't know how it would be, and it was so much fun, and I felt, you know, beautiful in my clothing, and I was really happy that I did it because it just came about spontaneously. I'm really here on book tour for these two books. It was very important to me that average Indian readers like the memoir and get to know me as an author, and it's been wonderful to travel the country. This is my third city. We also just came from Hyderabad, and we're going to Bangalore with the Hindu Huddle, and then we'll be going back to Chennai, and I think my last event is on Valentine's.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
I wish you all the success for your books and for your life ahead, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.